class, going out protesting, those schools are not going to be paid for that day.
The state, Governor Abbott says, will set the parameters to determine what is necessary in identifying and investigating staff who help violate standards in supporting walkouts.
Outrage in Texas over this disturbing video that police say shows 45-year-old Chad Michael Watts assaulting a teenage girl. The incident happened Monday in Buatois, Texas, just outside Austin, during a student anti-ICE protest.
Good morning. This is Living in the Promised Land. Welcome. I'm your host, Mark Schmorley, and I am coming to you today from the great city of Montgomery, Alabama. I had a case in Montgomery this week, so I'm here. And so I wanted to talk to you about the videos we just watched, and I wanted to talk to you about student participation, public participation. There's all kinds of discussions right now on how communities can be active, and we've focused on that quite a bit on how communities are required, how community action is required, and it's happening, and people are wanting to do it, and our tradition of organizing is there, but man, does it need to be assisted, helped, and pushed, because the feeling is there. People don't like what they're seeing. So as I was here, yesterday, I had some time and I went to what's called the Legacy Museum, which examines the African American, discrimination, oppression, racism from the beginning of slavery, even a little before, until the mass incarceration today. And so in this project, in this museum, there was a section on the Montgomery bus boycott, of course, which happened right here, which was the cradle of the civil rights movement in the late 1950s. We know Rosa Parks, when she refused to sit in the back of the bus, got arrested, and African Americans in Montgomery went on strike, organized rides, organized alternative ways to get to work, and they went on strike, meaning they didn't use the buses, and eventually they did use them 11 months later when they were integrated, and Martin Luther King was was quite involved with that. And it was like early in his career. He was really young. It was the mid-late 50s. So but I wanted to talk about what I saw in the reaction part. And we've all, seen videos. Some of us are old enough to have lived through it, not me, but we've seen videos and of the water cannons and the brutal use of dogs against protesters, etc. But we've seen, some of the more glaring racist comments and all that. But what's not talked about is what's called the White Citizens Councils, and they were the businessmen in town, the judges, businessmen, elected officials who wanted to preserve segregation. And so, I want to focus on something that alarmed me with the news we just saw. The continuation of it, of this pattern, is the White Citizens Council on June 9th, 1963, put out a statement that said, in response to the student protesters, in response to sit-ins, the White Citizen Council this is their call to combat courts who give sit-in demonstrators legal immunity and prevent schools from expelling students who participate in this mob activity. Okay, so fast forward today. Well, they can't be that blunt, although some are. We know that. The boldness is there. So the boldness, the bluntness is there. And so, but that's not really the style of the person I want to talk about a little bit today, and that's Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. And his style is always you don't really see, he's not a quotable person. So he's not going to say, like George Wallace, segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. He's not going to say things like that. That would be Stephen Miller who has those statements to make. But is he preserving white supremacy? Yes. Is he, I mean, I could be hyperbolic and say he's a Klansman. Okay. What are you when you hearken to that tradition? What are you? And we know these White Citizens Council members were Klansmen too. They were just in their day in their suits and going to their work. So, um, and I think we need to highlight this. So we need to connect these communities and we need to connect these experiences because while discrimination is not the same pattern against each group that is discriminated against, and they might be separate, and people like to divide people. Our movement needs to be together, and we need to find the common ground here. And so when Greg Abbott and others talk about, well, there's a statement from the Texas Education Association, your job is to instruct teachers, and if you encourage or allow these students to walk off, well, then we could essentially take over your school system. We could, they used to call it, a receivership for a place like Washington, D.C., when the government takes over, or, with these civil rights decisions of the time, the Department of Justice would take over the voting rolls. They would take over the voting process in an area. They would oversee things so strongly because it's kind of like you need a nanny because you can't behave as an adult. And so as we talk about adults, we talk about what happened here. In the 50s, we know what happened. There were peaceful protests, and then there were racists attacking them. And they said, well, this causes violence. This is what happened at the University of Mississippi, and this is the old playbook of, well, you're stirring of violence. If you just shut up and sat down and, you could discuss it in class maybe, and a teacher could control it, but you can't do actions because actions cause reactions, and you're to blame for the reaction. So in this case, the reaction, a man, last name of Watt, in Texas, and you see the video, he just hopped out of his truck and pounded on the students. Got charged with assault. Well, I didn't hear Greg Abbott say this man, this 45-year-old man who beat up on kids, girls, had a natural reaction to a walkout of students who, the students are interviewed brilliantly. Why are you here? It affects my classmates, whether they're citizens or not. And that's true because we know there are mixed families, another thing people don't talk about. But we know that. We know that siblings, it's a matter of which side you were born on, for God's sake. Which side you were born on. And you know what? Like I said, I don't talk a lot about my family, but my dad, born here, his sister, not born here, made a difference. Makes a difference. It made a difference in their refugee story. It made a difference in their family being able to leave Europe. My dad was the only one born in the US. So I understand the power of being born in the US. Do you know what this means for a kid in school to defend his classmate, not attacking anybody, just saying defend this classmate? And they are wanting to put that down. One of the administrators said, well, it's a lesson in civics, and she supported them. That's great. I love it. Love liberals. It's a great thing. We need liberals, but it's more than that. It's more than a civics lesson. It is a call for fundamental justice that's taught in every one of these churches that's around here. That's normal. It is the foundation of decency to do that. And we got to keep our eyes on that prize. We got to keep our eyes on it. So when people, they want to distract us by saying, well, uh, there's some student in, California who yelled an insult. And so we're going to focus on that, or somebody, this is what you will see on media, be it, people say Fox News, okay, that's the corporate part of it, but we'll see it on videos everywhere. We can't be distracted. They did it during the civil rights movement, tried to talk about the radicals. They tried to talk about people stirring up violence. That's exactly what's happening now. So I say, Greg Abbott, you're forming your White Citizens Council through the state. You are using the polite arguments of that the Klan enforced at the time. And this man was your enforcer. This man was your enforcer. Just like, you know, when you have violence against the protesters, and you say, well, they're going to ignite it because it's so out there. And so I think that's really important. And I think that love the students doing this. I wanted to flag that for you. And I wanted to say that these connections, we have to these historic connections have to be in our lexicon. We need them in order to provide the context that no, this isn't crazy. It's repeating the same things over and over again to preserve white supremacy. And Greg Abbott is part of the plan, part of the group that is there to preserve white supremacy. And Texans, hopefully, will vote him out, but he's a strong politician. Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. Work around him, form in your communities. He's important, but the movement survives, just like the movement survived all of those really popular racists. I mean, George Wallace was getting elected in this state of Alabama. He's getting elected. And when he wasn't, his wife did. But it's okay because the movement builds. So support your movements. I met a guy yesterday. We're going to have him on this week from who's building a community movement in Memphis, Tennessee. It's happening, folks. Keep pushing. Support your neighbors. Fuck ICE and get rid of them.